I'm looking
with
at
lived experience. You are looking at a trans woman who has been transitioning for over 20 years.
She's been trans for 20 years? Oh, you wouldn't be able to tell, would you? Hello everybody, my name is Alex Daly and today I'm going to be watching another video from Jubilee. The video is one conservative versus 25 LGBTQ plus activists. I think this will be a really interesting video to watch. I'm going to give my opinions and what I think about what everyone has to say in this debate. I will have a fair ability to sort of negotiate between both parties and we'll see how that goes. So, the first claim is there is no such thing as same-sex marriage. Today I'm more interested in the transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely, which is a really big statement. I do not share that opinion completely. I believe that there is a lot of aspects of transgenderism that needs to be eradicated, like trans in youth. There should be no introduction of it to any kind of youth in any kind of sense. I think that if someone's struggling with gender dysphoria as a child, then they should be going to a psychiatrist who would be treating them in the way of helping them come to reality and accept the gender that they were born. I think that most people who are trans today as adults are not truly trans, and that we'll see somewhere in the 90% figure of them beginning to detransition. And if we could give them the help that they so need to actually come to that realization sooner than later, then we would actually find that these people will not be left with such lifelong damage and irreversible changes that they would have done to their bodies. Yeah, so let's dive right in.
My next claim is that transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely.
So running.
Hi.
Hello.
Blossom. She, her, hers powerhouse.
Blossom Powerhouse, lovely to meet you.
Yes. Go ahead. I want to know your ideology around transgenderism, something that doesn't exist. It just sounds more like conservative propaganda. So I kind of want to know a little bit more about what you're trying to communicate.
Okay, I think for all of history everywhere, people have understood the human person to have something to do with his body. So like your body has something to do with who you are. Now there is an alternative view, which is called Gnosticism. It's a view that our bodies don't really have anything to do with who we are, that the body is maybe even evil, and that our true selves have no connection to our bodies. And I see in the transgender ideology a kind of Gnosticism that says that you could look like a man, you could have a man's genetics, you could have a man's genitals, you could have a man's everything, but if you feel on some deep level that you're really a woman, then you are really a woman. And I don't think that's true, and I think that the social effects of that are really bad because it leads to the depriving women of their legitimate rights. In some cases it leads to rapes, notably in the last.
Yes, I agree with pretty much everything that is said. It is this belief that just because you feel something, then you are something, rather than the reality of the situation. So the reality is that I am a biological male, and that will always be fact. There's nothing that can truly actually ever change that. Biology is something that is decided at conception, and unfortunately there is literally no way to change that decision that the genes and the biology have sort of made for us. Contrary to what he said though, I do believe people who truly are suffering or struggling with things like gender dysphoria, and it is truly the only recourse that they can take and go forward with transitioning ultimately, then I think that there is the ability to change the appearance of your secondary sex characteristics to present yourself definitely as a woman. However, the reality is that does not make you a woman. All it does is make you a trans woman, which is still a biological male at the end of the day.
And it also leads to women losing their sports competitions and their scholarships, and it's just disordered and false. And it also leads to more people adopting this identity, which leads to very high rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. So it's bad for everyone, and it's not grounded in reality.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah. Also, what he did say before about it leads to things like rapes and those things is a big issue, but I would definitely argue that that is not something that is due to specifically someone who is trans. It is due to something like the trans ideology, which it is adopted by people who are AGPs. An AGP is someone who is an autogynephiliac, and an autogynephiliac, it is someone who is a heterosexual biological male who transitions into something that they are sexually aroused by. So it is a man who's attracted to women who is then transitioning into the thing that they are attracted to. It is sort of like this perverted, fetishized behavior that is really, really contrary to what someone who is a transsexual is, because someone who's an AGP is doing it because they don't believe they have to physically change or take hormones or do anything other than wear a dress or grow their hair or wear a wig and put on lipstick. They believe that those are all you have to do, and they are very, very, very into the idea of making someone feel uncomfortable simply with their presence of doing that and putting on that sort of exhibitionism. It is sort of a display to make someone feel uncomfortable. It is also a ticket used by people who are sexual offenders to self-ID into being a woman without doing anything to actually become a trans woman. They're not doing anything other than just saying that they are a woman, maybe chucking on a dress, and just being someone who is very visually unstable.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
I can call the police.
Right beforehand, you fucking said sir. Sir? Motherfucker, take it outside. If you want to call me sir again, I will show you a fucking sir.
I apologize.
Motherfucker.
I apologize now.
You can just tell from their appearance that they are not trying, that they are uncomfortable to look at.
No.
What are you doing?
You do not.
Hey.
You do not.
What are you doing? What? Hey.
You do not take pictures of me.
Look what you're doing.
Right. Look what you're doing, kid.
Yo, what?
And they are using that self-ID to then go into women's spaces. They are using that self-ID to sort of go from being a man who's in prison to then go straight into the women's prison. Putting this man who's often a sexual offender into a women's prison leads to things like sexual assault, and unwanted pregnancies of these kids who are now being born into a prison system and then put straight into the foster system. And it is really unfortunate. It is disgusting behavior. An AGP is someone who is not truly a transsexual, but they are using the transsexual ideology to move into that space with women and make them uncomfortable and go forward with their perverted behavior and get away with these things because it is such a protected thing by the LGBT. I would even draw comparisons to things like the Catholic Church, where they were such a protected community of people, like the priests and everything, and then it became a safe haven for people who were sexual predators because they would join arms and they would protect each other. The LGBT is doing the same thing. They are joining forces and they are hunkering down and protecting everyone across the board without calling out the people who are really an issue. And there's a lot of them. There's people who are just using it as a way to offend. The issue is when it comes to being trans, you have to make a lot of sacrifices. It should be a really, really difficult thing to do. And one of those sacrifices is if you were an athlete or want to be an athlete as a trans woman, it's one of the things you have to sacrifice. You are not allowed to compete with women. You can compete with the men. You are a biological male. You can compete with the men. You're going to look like a woman if you've gone through all the proper avenues of getting surgery and having hormones, and now you're still wanting to play sports. So you can go play sport, but you got to play them with the men. Being trans means you have to make sacrifices. If you want to get into sports and you want to compete, what you do is you do what Caitlyn Jenner did. You go, you compete, you win your medals, you win your championships, and once you've completed all of that, maybe you don't have kids and stuff, but once you've done all that and you've won all your medals and you've been successful, then when you've retired, you can go forward with your transition. It's not for everyone, and if you are not willing to give up the sports side of who you are and wanting to compete, you shouldn't be transitioning at the end of the day. And if you are transitioning and you are competing, you are doing it simply to get ahead because you sucked as a man and you smashing it as a woman because you're not truly a woman.
Not grounded in reality.
Oh, I don't even think you understand what you say sometimes. I don't think you even understand what you say, because when we talk about these rape cases of women in the restroom, they're coming from cis men like you. So let's
No.
be very clear
No,
where
no,
it's
that's
coming
not true.
from.
In
Oh,
20
it's
in
very, very true.
2021
Excuse me, do not interrupt a black
well,
trans woman when she's
I'm
speaking.
just trying to
Do
correct
not
you.
interrupt
Well,
a
I would
black
never
trans woman
I
when
would
she's
I would
speaking.
never
No, no,
interrupt
no,
a black
no,
woman.
No, thank you.
You made
Here's the thing about me as a black trans woman. I am not a threat to cis women, and I think it is harmful that you are going around here.
Just the way that she is so like she's like coming at you when she's arguing like you're a threat. Like the way you carry yourself is not a woman, Blossom. You carry yourself like a man. You argue like a man. You come at people. You tell people to shut up. You tell people not to interrupt you. Like if I've ever seen masculine male behavior, it's the way that Blossom acts when she debates. She comes at people. She does these things. Like that's not a feminine thing to do. It's also not a feminine or female thing to tell someone to like shut up. Not that it's okay for men to tell women to shut up, but it's not at all something that you ever really see a woman do now, is it? It's not something where you see a woman go to another woman or a man and go, shut up, don't interrupt me. Like that's not appropriate. That's really, really masculine male behavior. And you are a threat. You are being threatening with your behavior. Like that's what you're doing. Like you're being threatening. Even if I saw you in the bathroom, I'd be concerned because you're built like a brick. Like you're just big. And I mean it's unfortunate if she's truly transsexual that's the way that she is, because it's going to be really hard for her to pass. The one thing she does have within her control is the way that she carries herself. And the way she carries herself is so aggressive. It's a very masculine energy. You want to carry yourself in a feminine way if you're a transsexual. It's not even something that you really have to think about. It's something that you just inherently do when you actually are transsexual. And it's something that becomes even more abundant in your mannerisms when you do things like take hormones, when you do things like walk through the world as like someone who is perceived as a woman. You become more innately feminine. You carry yourself in a more female way, and you're just carrying yourself in a very masculine way. Like no one would say that the way that she is presenting herself is very female, and that sounds harsh, but I'm not saying it to be harsh. I'm saying it as almost constructive feedback. You would get a lot further with the points that maybe you're trying to prove if you were presenting as the thing you say you were trying to present as. You were saying don't interrupt a black woman, and the first thing he said is I would never. And it's because he's not. It's because he's interrupting a delusional black man. Like someone who's delusional needs to be interrupted. They need to be stopped in their tracks because they are running down this path of delusion.
Weaponizing this rhetoric against trans people.
Weaponizing facts?
Transgenderism does not exist. We as trans people exist. We are 1% of the population. And there is a lot of power in the trans identity because you are sitting here spewing something to me that doesn't really
I'm not
exist.
spewing anything. I'm just stating facts plainly.
I have lived experience. You don't. And you never will. But I do have a question
I have
for
lived
you.
experience.
What if one of your
I'm alive.
I truly disagree with this whole concept of just because you're not the person or the topic that we're discussing or arguing about doesn't mean you get no say. They say men don't get the right to have an opinion on things like abortion. No, like everyone in a world where there's free speech gets the right to have an opinion about anything they want. And if it is a bad idea and you get to verbally express it, what happens when that sees daylight, the topic that and the thing that might be so outlandish and out of pocket, when you say it out loud, what it does is it gets you the feedback that you're looking for. You sort of get the ability to sort of debate that topic, and it gives us the ability to sort of help people see maybe a different idea. But when we're telling people you don't have the right to talk about something because you don't know that experience or you couldn't ever imagine what that's like, we are cutting off their ability to ever actually imagine what that's like and ever understand what that's like. And when people aren't allowed to talk about something, it ends up making someone feel like they're being oppressed by something, and they'll go find out people who feel like-minded in that type of situation or topic. And then we get things where we have people who are being radicalized into these really horrible ideas that need to see the light of day. They're not being allowed to. So in places like Germany, where they're currently charging you when you say something that might be perceived as racist online, and they're coming and they're raiding your house and taking your phone and taking your laptop into custody, and they're going to go through it and find all the racist things that apparently you might have said. What that does is it's radicalizing these people into thinking the thing that you were trying to tell them they're not allowed to think. We need the ability to have freedom of speech. So I never agree with anyone who's like, you can't have an opinion on something because you haven't experienced it. That's wrong. We all get to have an opinion about whatever the we believe. If I want to have an opinion about abortion, I can have an opinion about abortion. I might be completely wrong, but that doesn't mean I don't get to have that opinion, and that doesn't mean that I don't get to speak about it. Because if I can't speak about it, how am I ever going to find out that I am wrong? All I'm going to do is think that I'm right. All I'm going to do is go find people who agree with me, because if I go to someone who doesn't agree with me and they tell me I'm not allowed to speak about it, I want to speak about it. So I'm going to go find those people, and it creates clusters of these people who become things like incels, because these people were told they're not allowed to have an opinion, that they're not good enough, that they shouldn't be proud of who they are. And that's not fair. We should all be proud of who we are, but we should be more proud of the things we accomplish. And if we're not able to speak, we can't accomplish anything at the end of the day.
One of your kids came out as trans. How would you
God
react
forbid.
to that?
I mean, I would obviously love my children, and I
Okay.
would try to do what's best for my children. And the best thing that I could do to be respectful and also to be conducive to their flourishing is to tell them the truth, which is that they're not really girls.
Oh, come on. I can't even imagine your relationship.
I agree. That is exactly what you're supposed to do when someone does come to you, as especially a child, and they're confused about their gender. We take them to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist should be helping with letting them come to terms with reality. And the reality is, if you're a boy, you're a biological boy, you are a boy. And if you're a biological girl, you are a girl. And then if you end up transitioning down the track, hopefully as an adult, and that is the decision for you, hopefully you still have the ability to see reality and know that even though you may be presenting as the opposite gender to the one you were born, you are still the gender that you were born. You are a biological male who is presenting as a woman. You are a biological woman who's presenting as a man. It is very simple. We have to stay rooted in reality, because if we don't stay rooted in reality, we're going to get these things that are just so harmful to society.
Your children, no shade.
That's great. That's a great
I
relationship
just
with
cannot
children.
even imagine that. But here's the reality. We exist. Again, people like you do not have the intellectual capacity to hold conversations like this, because in a minute you're going to reduce this down to genitalia, and then we're going to have this.
Okay, so you're always going to lose an argument when you're trying to go against someone's point, and instead of giving a valid argument as to why someone is wrong or why you disagree with what someone just said, if you start with insults, you don't have the intellectual capacity to understand what I'm saying. That is just insulting someone because you don't have a fact to oppose what someone has just said. You can't disprove them, so instead you insult them. That's a really weak argument, Blossom.
Shift this somewhere else, because obviously
No, in a
people like
minute-
you, that's where they go, right?
In a minute, what I'm going to do is correct something you said. When you said that
Go ahead.
the rapes that have occurred in these bathrooms are cis men.
White cis men, I should say,
Yeah,
actually.
that isn't true. Loudoun County, 2021, the big case that actually ended up flipping the state was because there was a boy who wore a skirt, went into the girl's bathroom and raped a girl in a particularly hideous way. And you know what happened? Hold on, don't cut me off. You said you wouldn't.
A cis boy. It was not a trans woman. All y'all do
I don't
is
think
go back to
See, now she's wrong, because what is happening is Blossom is trying to do this thing where she is trying to say that people are trans because they say they're trans. But then if this guy's saying he is a woman and he's going into the girl's bathroom and doing these things, you are now suddenly saying, oh no, but he's a cis male white man. And again, I hate the word cis, but no, your ideology is telling us that if you self-ID as something, then you are something. In reality, it was a biological male who went into the bathroom with a skirt on and he sexually assaulted a woman. That is really, really horrendous. But it is reality. It was someone who was using the tool of self-ID to do so, and that just proves that self-ID is something that is super harmful. Transgenderism is being used as a tool, like I just said before. It is being used as a tool by people who are predators. And we need to gatekeep that. We need to gatekeep being trans. We need to gatekeep the ability to be trans and to identify as such and to be going into the female bathrooms. We should be gatekeeping it to a degree where you should be having to be on hormones, because when you go on hormones, what happens? You're castrated. People won't be allowed to go into the woman's bathroom if they haven't been on hormones for, say, 3 or 4 years. They need to have gone through with things like surgeries and hormones and medicalization. And if they haven't, then that's a very valid reason as to why we don't let men go into the women's bathroom. I never agree with trans women going into the changing room, because there's no reason on planet Earth that I can imagine as to why they need to go into the changing room. And people say it's because they need to change. Change at home. That's literally all you have to do. Change at home. You don't need to change anywhere else. There's no reason you need to go and change in the changing room if you're a trans woman. You just need to go home and change clothes there, or go into a disabled toilet. Go into a private bathroom where you are not around anyone else. Because someone who's truly trans doesn't want to be around anyone else when they get dressed, because they don't want to get clocked. They don't want to be found out for the fact that they are not the gender that they appear. They want to pass. And going into the changing room is a very quick way to find out that you are not the gender that you are appearing.
Cis boys, you're always talking about cis boys. I don't understand the fascination with trans bodies and what's happening in the bathroom. It is mostly happening.
I think
from
you're
white,
filibustering because you don't want me to tell you what happened in the bathroom.
Who?
Me. I think you're filibustering me.
No.
I think that you're distracting from the fact that a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's
A
bathroom
boy,
raped a girl.
but not a trans woman.
Well, there's no such thing as a trans woman.
Oh, yes, it is. You're looking at one right now.
I'm looking at.
You're looking at me right now. With lived experience.
I'm looking
with
at a
lived experience. You are looking at a trans woman who has been transitioning for over 20 years, who has lived experience.
Yes.
You're talking to an activist here.
But your identity is not grounded in reality.
She's been trans for 20 years. You wouldn't be able to tell, would you? Again, lived experience, not a reason as to why you suddenly know better about something. If anything, having lived experience can also hinder your ability to be able to see reason on the topic, because it is so personal that you have bias on it.
Somebody that's extreme. Oh, I am reality.
I'm not really talking to anyone because you keep talking over me.
In your head, I'm not, but I am in reality.
Yeah.
I'm here in front of you right now talking to you.
You're confused about your identity.
No, you are confused at the fact that you don't really have any talking points right now, because
Then why aren't you letting me speak?
You really don't.
If I have nothing to say, why aren't you letting me speak?
Put me on your show. How about that?
Then it would become your show, I think.
Oh, yeah, I should have a show. I should have a show.
In 2018, there were 2 rapes in bathrooms, and one in Wisconsin, one in Georgia.
From men.
Also because of the transgender identity.
But say it, cis men.
If you're going to describe a boy who wears a skirt and goes into a girl's bathroom as a cis man, no, I didn't.
No, you are. This is the example that you run to. Past that, you have nothing.
I've just given you 3 examples.
Nothing.
I've given you 3 examples in recent years.
You don't. You've been struggling this entire time.
News to me. Have I?
Yeah, you have.
He's been struggling to speak because she won't shut the up. Because she won't let him speak, because she has probably learned experience, like she says, that if she is silent, she might hear something that she can't say anything against, except probably chuck an insult. And she probably also knows that the more insults she chucks, the more unhinged she looks. And I keep saying she, I don't know, whatever. But the more unhinged they look, like they just, you can't be having an argument or a debate about something and just throwing insults and speaking over the other person the whole time, because all that ultimately does is lead to nothing. It hinders the ability for someone to have an argument about something, and what it really kind of shows you as is someone who has no idea what they're talking about. Blossom, I don't know how you've made it this far in this sort of like circle of being an advocate for people who are not looking for you as their advocate anyway, the trans people. They, trust me, they do not like the crazy representation that you are doing. But maybe it's the fact that she's so crazy, and maybe in the worst case scenario, the people who are far right conservatives are using her as a tool and putting her everywhere to make people who are trans look crazy. And the thing is, I think deep down, most truly transsexual people are not as unhinged as her. And it's unfortunate that she's the person who gets the space to speak on these issues, because she's really been counterintuitive in the way that we are able to move forward for, say, like any rights that we are not having, which at the, like, let's be honest, like trans people, we have all our rights. We always had all our rights. I don't know what rights you're looking for, like when in a world where there's equality of sexes, I would say that there is no right that is being hindered. for a trans person ultimately. It might be different in a place like a third world country, it might be different in a place that's not westernized culture. I think that westernized culture is at a place where people who are being spokespeople for the trans community are acting really unhinged, and if anything, at the end of all of this, we're going to lose our rights that we always have had. It's going to make progress, not that there ever needed to be progress, but it's going to make it go backwards. We're going to lose anything that we did have to begin with, which we had everything. There's no rights that you can tell me that we don't have. We have all the rights that we need and we deserve, and all people like Blossom are doing is taking away from that because they're being too much. They're asking too much, they're demanding too much, they're saying too much. They're saying things that don't make sense, that are unhinged, and it's leaving us with nothing.
The trans lady doth protest too much, methinks.
Bye. Goodbye.
Perhaps I'll see you on my show.
Yes, invite me.
Yeah.
Get my email. Tell your people to get my email address. How about
Sure.
that?
Yeah.
Please don't have her on your show. I hate the winning.
Hello?
Okay, so if we're gonna think about women getting raped in bathrooms, right? It's a small percentage of trans people that are doing it. I'm not denying that that's happening because it is a reality and it's an awful thing for women to have to go through.
Yeah.
But then what are we doing about the men that are the 93% of sexual violence towards women?
No, hopefully arresting them and putting them in prison.
Yeah, 100%. That it's such a silly point because all you're doing is you're trying to sort of take the point that we're trying to highlight and sort of cover it with another issue, which yes may be bigger, but it is something that we're already aware of, instead of sort of still addressing the thing that no one seems to want to talk about, which is the fact that there are women who are becoming victims to people who are pretending to be trans, and people who are self-IDing into the bathroom and sexually assaulting women, and people who are injuring women in sports, people who are assaulting women in prisons. Like, it is really silly to sort of try and shift, like sort of pivot the perspective instead of dealing with the issue at hand. Yes, we can deal with the issue that there are men who are causing sexual assaults, but then there are trans women, biological men still, yes, who are saying that they're trans and they're going in and doing these assaults. That still needs to be spoken about. We can't just stop shifting, focus on the problem, deal with the problem, then we can probably talk about that issue. We always are talking about that issue anyway.
And what are you doing before that? Why are men the highest percentage for this? If it's such a bad thing for trans women to use the bathroom when a very, very, very small amount of women are being raped by trans women, why are we not having any sort of things before for men?
I think we try to enforce our laws and protect people from rape, and so we take
apparently not very well.
No, I think relatively well. We have a relatively low rate of these kinds of violent crimes compared to other places in the world. But in one area, we're talking about men forcing themselves into women's bathrooms. This is one area where we don't need to allow them to do that. It's a needless risk. It's based on a false view of reality and claims of rights, so-called rights, from confused men that infringe on the legitimate rights of women, not just in bathrooms, but also in sports competitions, also in scholarships, also in just about anywhere else in society. So I think that we have the right to insist upon some kind of reality, because I think not only will that be better for women, not only will that be better for society broadly, but that especially will be better for the individuals who are confused about their gender identity.
And how are you going to prevent trans women from using the female bathroom? How are you going to tell? What's the tea?
There are some giveaways, contrary to what the trans activists
and what are
say.
They?
Men who identify as women, you can usually tell.
And what are they? You can say you can tell all you want.
Yeah, broad shoulders, Adam's apple, and like the face, and
Right,
she still had a touch of an Adam's apple.
You can tell. You can usually tell.
Usually.
Not all the time, but usually.
Okay. So if you can only usually tell, what are you going to do to prevent it?
Well, look, a man who doesn't even identify as trans, a man who's just a nefarious fellow, could sneak into a woman's bathroom, and so we have to enforce the law.
93%, because what are you doing about men?
We should enforce the law against people who break it.
And what are you doing before that? Like, why is it a continuous pattern for men?
We teach
to do
people
this?
in class.
You're not teaching them very well, apparently. I mean, we have Republican parties who are literally putting a president who is a felon who has sexually assaulted people. What does that say to men?
Yeah, no one really buys that.
I bought it.
No one really buys that. No one seriously thinks that Donald Trump is.
Yeah, no. He's one of my favorite politicians out there. I love Donald Trump. He's great. Silly argument again. Like there's no real debating going on here. She's just trying to shift the blame. She's trying to shift what is actually going on here. Again, people are scared to debate and talk about this topic. I think that it's important to talk about this topic, but it seems like a lot of people just don't want to. And they'll either insult you or they'll sort of just shift and pivot their opinion to sort of deflect. Like, that's essentially what they're doing.
A rapist. I know we pretend because the Democrats were trying to prosecute him 4 different ways and kicking him off.
If rape is such a bad thing, why don't you believe women when they say it's happening? Because you're not believing Trump when he says that he didn't do it. You're, whatever, but you're not believing the woman.
Yeah, the claim you're making about Trump obviously was not criminally prosecuted. It comes from about 30 years ago from a woman who previously said that she likes rape and finds it, scintillating. Gross. And I know it's terrible. So anyway, women
has ever said that.
That woman did. The Trump's accuser.
That's an interesting fact check. It is a broad statement to say that no woman has ever. I don't think that we can ever use the word every group of person hasn't done or has done, because all you're doing is making a statement which is factually generally untrue. All you're doing is making a statement that is factually untrue. We cannot say that no woman has ever said A, B, or C, because at the end of the day, there's no record of what every woman or every man has ever said. And I'm sure that if you go down the line and do the math, the number of things that every single person around the world every day ever said about anything, there are going to be people who have said something that you say apparently no one has ever said ever. Trust me, people have said everything. So that's, again, a silly argument.
Literally said that to Anderson Cooper on CNN. But,
Sure, I'm sure a fetish with, consenting adults might be different, but no woman knowingly goes out into this world and says, I love to be raped.
I'm just using the example you brought up, which is the accuser of Donald Trump. But anyway, no one really believes Trump's a rapist. And so your question is, why don't we... Okay, I guess maybe some people
did the same thing she just did.
You ask, why don't we just believe all women all the time? Well, I do think we should give a lot of deference to people who are accusing others of crimes. And so, we have courts of law to adjudicate these.
I disagree with the term believe all women. What I instead prefer to think, I would say, is take all accusations seriously. So we can seriously take what the accusation that has been said is, we go and investigate it, and we find out whether it's true, whether there's facts to back it up, and then go forward with that. We should take every accusation seriously, but we shouldn't be believing all women, because at the end of the day, everyone lies about something. Men lie, women lie. Not everyone will lie about something like that. In fact, I would hope that most people don't lie about something like that. People still will, at the end of the day, lie about something as serious as that. So it's not that we shouldn't be taking it seriously, because I think every accusation always should be taken seriously, because it's a very serious thing. But believing all women is a very silly way to look at it. We shouldn't just be saying because someone's a woman that means that they're always 100% a truth teller. That's just not the case. Women lie just as much as men lie. Maybe that's might not be true. Maybe men lie more than women, but I couldn't really give you the statistics on that. But what I'm going to say is that everyone has lied in their life. Not everyone has lied about something as serious as that, but some people do. So to say believe all women is a really good way to have people who are innocent end up in jail. And as the number of people who were saying believe all women went up, what we were seeing is a massive increase at the exact same time. People who were falsely accused going to jail. While it is a difficult topic to talk about, it is something that is still valid and that we should still talk about, because there are still men out there who will be experiencing the false accusations. And to say believe all women is, it's ultimately going to lead to people who are innocent being put in prison, and what you're doing is you're just increasing the number of victims while maybe helping people who are also victims. We can't be sacrificing the few for the many, because there only isn't just two options. There isn't just believe all men or believe all women. There is the ability to just take the situation seriously. And the situation is that someone's made an accusation, and whether or not it's true or false, that seriousness needs to be put into finding that out. That's what we take seriously. We don't just take one gender seriously, we take the whole situation seriously, and that way we're able to find out who is innocent and who is not, and we can go forward like that.
I don't know. I don't think women are incapable of lying, but I do think that we should protect their legitimate
Even
political
when
rights.
women do lie, though, it's a very, very, very small percentage. Point blank, period. So, what again are you doing? Like, you care to claim about women so much because trans people in the bathroom is so scary.
My claim
What
here
are we doing
is
in other areas?
my actual claim here is that transgenderism is false, and we should eradicate it from public life because it's harmful to everyone.
Okay,
That's my
so-
actual. If you want to talk about the claim, we're actually
let's start with
debating.
that then.
Yeah.
What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's allowing men to be treated for the purposes of the law as women. It's men taking 900 sports trophies from women in recent years. And
they didn't take 900.
They took 900. There's a report just came out from the United Nations, actually. 890 trophies and medals across 600 women who were competitors, across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out like yesterday.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. I remember when the number was at like 80 or 90. And now the number is 890. Like, I felt like even at just below the hundreds, just like close to 100 was already a lot. Like, I thought that was way too many medals to begin with. The number has skyrocketed and now it's almost 900. So it's too many. And we should be retroactively probably going back and giving all these women the correct medals and be taking the medals away from the trans people because it's sick. Okay, well that was really, really interesting. I feel like I had a lot to say on that whole little segment. If you liked what you just watched, please leave a comment with your opinions on what you believe, and if that's whether or not you disagree with me or you agree with me. I'm glad to hear it, and I love reading the comments. Please don't forget to like this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'm going to watch the rest of this video over the course of the next couple of weeks, and I'll post those videos as well. We might come back to that first section. As extreme as I thought that this point that Michael was going to push for was, I actually found myself agreeing with almost everything that he did say. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. My name is Alex Daly. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.